You've heard them a million times, whether you call them tags, turnarounds, or endings. They're a repeat of the final line in a song leading to the ending. Sometimes they can be part of an encore performance. So those of you that go back to the days of the gospel quartets, when they were in their heyday, you know, they would sing a song, they would do a big ending, and everybody would applaud. And they would come back in and do a turnaround and come back in and do the chorus or whatever and do the ending again. You know, that was kind of their thing. But, you know, we used one today when Teresa sang, People Get Ready. Okay? She did a tag and then ended the song, right? And so the tag, we repeated that. You better get on board, you better get on board, and, you know, tagged it. And you can also tell when the worship leaders are singing and they're going to do a tag, they go like this. Okay, that means tag. We're doing a tag. And so you saw that today. So today we're going to look at the first 7 Psalms as a study of our tagline to this series. Okay? It's kind of Selah. Remember? Think about it. Pause, think about it, and repeat, if you will. So let's get started. This is my wife's favorite line, what is the point? Okay? What is the point? If you're gonna have a message, what is the point? If you're gonna teach a Sunday school lesson, what is the point? If you're gonna do a series, what is the point? And we talked about this week 1, but I want to come back and revisit all this. It's our tag, right? What is the point? The point to the series I'm going to sing, looking at Psalms, and I never said we were going to look at all the Psalms. I want to be really clear about that. Is that we want to understand and practically apply walking with God. Or we might call it growing. You know, we have all these phrases, all these terms that exist in the church world. And if you attend church for a while, you kind of get caught up on the language. And so people can say things and you understand. I was talking to somebody yesterday and I said, it's like the phrase, seek God. Well, if you just walked in off the street, what in the world does that mean? Right? To start with, in modern society, we don't even use the word seek. Right? I'm going to go seek out. We don't talk like that. Right? Yeah, maybe, but even that dates us, right? Hide and seek. So, you know, when I talk about seeking God, you know, it's going and trying to learn more about God. It's trying to get closer to God. It's, you know, so there's practical application stuff we need to talk about. And we also need to talk about growing in God as in maturing. There are people that have been Christians for 40 years, and they're not mature at all. They're still 2-year-olds. They didn't grow. They didn't mature. Right? They might have gotten experience in God, but they haven't matured in God because they still get tripped up by the same childish things. And so part of maturing is putting away childish things. Right? It's time to get over it. I told my kids when they were looking for work, their first jobs kind of things, I told them, you know, you have to understand, you're a kid, this is like spending money for you, okay? But for the people that you're working with, this is their career. They're as serious as a heart attack. And you can't be all casual and nonchalant about the job without irritating them, because they're serious about it, okay? Well, guess what? We need to be serious about God. I'm not saying we have to be harsh towards anybody or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But if we're not serious about God, we're making a lot of dumb mistakes. And we have to have situational awareness. You know, when you talk about self-protection and security and those kinds of things. Situational awareness is one of the really key things that you have to learn. You got to have your eyes open and be paying attention to what's going on. And, Gideon's army, one of the things they did was, see how they take the water. Do they bring it up to their mouth? What was he talking about? He was talking about situational, boy, I can't talk today. Situational awareness, right? Were they so focused on the water that they weren't paying attention to what was going on around them or not? The Bible tells us that the enemy, the devil, goes around, Satan goes around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. So you can think you're on whatever cloud you're on, and think you're just playing your harp and taking it easy. But the reality is there's someone out there who's trying to destroy you. And if you're not aware of your situation, you will suffer greatly. Okay? You need to pay attention to what's going on. You can say, well, God's not going to let anything bad happen. Well, guess what? With Gideon's army, they were going to go out and win a battle, but he didn't send the ones even into the battle that weren't paying attention to what was going on around them. You need to be situationally aware. What's going on? And sometimes that can avoid some real problems, because if I'm not situationally aware, if I've kind of got my head in the sand, someone says something and I can be greatly offended, and I can damage a relationship with how I handle it, how I respond to it. But here's the reality. If I'm situationally aware, I can say, wait a minute, something's going on over there. God's making me aware. They're dealing with something. I need to know what's going on over there. Maybe they're really hurting, and I can respond in a way different fashion. That's being aware of my situation. That's also being mature and putting away childish things, right? And then it comes down to this in this whole series. So I said walking with God, maturing, situational awareness, and who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? And we kind of looked at that last week. Oh, Lord, my God. That's who I'm going to call. Oh, Lord, my God. That's the one I need to have on speed dial. Oh, Lord, my God. There's an old saying. It says, 7 days without prayer makes 1 week. W-E-A-K. 7 days without prayer makes 1 week. And so in looking at this lesson today, tag, we're going to talk about 7 Psalms for 7 days. It's not an original thought, but and looking at the Psalms and studying some stuff, there was a commentator who said the first 7 Psalms is a pattern for how to live your week. And I wanted to take that and expand on it a little. Now, I'm not trying to go create some new doctrine or whatever, but I am trying to help you grow in God, all right? So what a week. Psalms 1 begins, and I'm talking big concepts here, so I'm not quote right down the line on a scripture. Colby asked me, he said, which are the scripture references for today? And I said, well, you can put in whatever you want, because I'm talking about the first 7 Psalms, but I'm not necessarily reading you any of the 7 Psalms, but that's what we're talking about. But Psalms 1 really starts out with, happy is he who obeys God. Happy is the man that obeys God. You know what? Monday, sometimes it is just, it's Monday. But if you start out on Monday and say, you know what? I am going to obey God. Now, I know we can get into which day is 1 and which day is 7. I'm not talking about that. I'm going to talk to you about the days, Monday through Sunday. That's how it appears on most of your calendars, not all, but most. And most of us talk about beginning on our week on Monday because that's the first day we got to go to work. Now, that's not all of us, but that's how most of us. So on Monday, happy is the man who obeys God. If you start out on Monday with the idea that I'm going to obey God all week long, you already know you're going to have a great week. You're going to have a happy week because you're going to be in sync with God. Your attitude's going to be in sync with God. Your motives in sync with God. Your heart in sync with God. And your purpose is to please God and do what he's asked you to do. If you start your week that way, everything else is going to be just fine. Then the second psalm really talks about trusting in God and giving it all to him. Trust in God and give it all to him. So we can have trusting Tuesdays. Okay? Have a trusting Tuesday. A Tuesday when you just, you know what? I am purposing in my heart. Not only am I going to obey God, which I started on Monday, but I'm going to trust God in all things. I'm just going to trust God no matter what. Okay? A trusting Tuesday. So if your week starts to go sideways, stop yourself and say, whoa, did I miss trusting Tuesday? So I might need to make that up real quick. Right? Get caught up on my trusting Tuesday. And, it's funny because it is a blessing when I know my children are, and of course they're adults, but they're watching Sunday school on the video side. And my oldest called me yesterday and said, okay, I got to talk to you about what Lisa said last week. I said, okay. He goes, she said trust is not an emotion. He goes, so what is it? He said, is it logic? Because trusting sometimes isn't logical, right? So we had a discussion about trusting and the spiritual aspect of trusting, right? If the spiritual aspect of trust is correct, then it is logical, and it probably is emotional too, right? But it's not purely emotion. It's not purely logic. It is, and it's part of our faith. It's part of having faith in God. That's where trust comes from, right? So it was good. It was good. We were having the discussion. So on Tuesdays, trust in all things. Trust in all things on Tuesdays. Trust God in all things. And then the third psalm really talks about God is my defender, particularly when I'm weak. So on Wednesdays, in your weakness, let him be made strong. It's the middle of the week. Sometimes that seems like you're out on an island. Let God be your defender. Give him your weakness. Say, God, I'm weak on Wednesday, but you're going to make me strong. You're going to defend me. You're going to watch my back. You're going to take care of me on Wednesdays because you are my shield. Does that make sense? Thursdays, well, the fourth psalm talks about trust more and you can sleep sound. Right? Trust more and you can sleep sound. So I guess we have trusting Tuesdays, but maybe we need to retrust on Thursday. Right? If I'm up to Thursday and my week is starting to really, I'm stumbling a little bit. You know, if you've ever watched a long horse race, you know, by the time they get to the end, some of the horses are starting to really pull hard. You know, maybe that's your Thursday. Let's go back and revisit trust. You know, David wrote many of the Psalms, and they say of David, you know, he was a man after God's own heart. And we look at that and we say, well, David was someone who had a heart similar to God's. But David talks a lot about trust. David talks a lot about giving it to God. David talks a lot about who God is to him. But I want you to think about that statement that David was a man after God's own heart. And I want you to change the emphasis a little bit in that for a second and think about it this way. David was a man who was seeking after God's heart. Okay? He was seeking after God's heart. He was looking for God's heart. So I said we don't use the word seeking a lot. Well, go find it. What is God's opinion? What is God's stance? What is God's attitude about this situation that I'm dealing with? I'm seeking God's heart. So be like David on Thursdays. Seek God's heart. Trust him more. And you can sleep sound. Because you don't have anything you have to worry about. I don't know about you. I could find things to worry about without any trouble at all. I need to remember to just trust God. He's good. You know, we say, he works all things for our good. We leave out the rest of it. Right? And that's like saying, I believe in coincidence. Right? Or I believe that the cosmos will just align automatically. Hey, how about you seek after God's heart? How about you put him first, that you love him and obey. Oops, that's Monday. And you obey his word, and then he will work it all out. And then I really can sleep sound, because then I can really trust that God's going to take care of it. That seems good. And then the fifth psalm really talks about godly expectation. Okay? Godly expectation to start your day. Talks about praying to God in the morning and having an expectation that God is going to do something. Are you expectant? Yes, ma'am.
I got a scripture the other day, Isaiah 30:18, said God is looking and longing and waiting to get to us, but he's also looking for us to look and long and wait for him to be good to us.
So Isaiah, what did you say, 30:18. Yeah, God is looking, he's looking for us, and we should be looking, yeah. Expectation. I remember, one of the things I think is really, really awesome is when you're getting ready to start a church service, and there's great expectation. It's like, you know, from the first note of worship, everything is it's gonna go. It's gonna be amazing, because there's an expectation. And you know, it's been many years ago, but I remember we were attending a church, and I had not been involved in worship for some period of months. And early in the morning, like before 6, the phone rang, and it was the pastor. And he said, the worship leader is going to be out today due to a death in the family. Can you lead worship? And so, no practice, no song list, no nothing. And so for me, it was like I need to go into what I know how to do cold, right? And so I sat down and I said, okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is our God is an awesome God. And I remember standing on the platform as people were coming in, and we started laying down a nice riff for our God is an awesome God. And you could just see the expectation come up in the room. And it was so cool. When we started that, the presence of God just exploded all over that place. Our God is an awesome God. You know, and why there was an expectation that day, I don't know, but I do thank God for it, right? But when we start our day, do we start our day expecting that God is going to do what we need him to do? Expecting that God is for us, right? Is that how are you waiting for the other shoe to drop? When I managed in retail many years ago, I had a boss who said, if you've got to fire somebody, fire them first thing in the morning. And I said, why is that? And he said, because if you don't, you're going to have a miserable day. Because you're going to be dreading what you have to do. And he goes, and you're not doing them any favors, because then they're going home and they're going to kick the dog because they got fired just before you sent them home. See, if you fire them early in the day, they can go look for a job that day. You know, there's a motivational series out there that starts Eat That Frog. It says, whatever it is you've got to do that's the worst thing, do it first. Get it out of the way, right? If you eat the frog first thing in the day, everything else is going to be easy after that, okay? Well, get the crud out of the way. Just get it first and foremost. Get to God and say, God, I'm coming to you. I put it all in your hands, and I'm expecting you to move. I'm expecting you to be God. Thank God it's Friday, because I can expect God to move, all right? And then the 6th Psalm really talks about recognizing God in our trials, in all things, and kind of keeping it real, right? Staying real before God. And what a great way to handle your Saturday, right? Just keep it real with God. There's no point in trying to, make it up, right? You can try and make stuff up with the people that you have around you. They probably can see through you, but that's okay. We think we can get away with it. With God, it doesn't work. We were talking with someone just recently, and I said, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. I said, you doing okay? Why? Do I not look like I'm doing okay? No, you look like you're doing fine. Is everything okay? Yeah. I said it was fine. It's okay. Are you sure you're doing all right? No, this is what's going on. I just didn't want to say anything. And I said, well, why would you not? Because God's just going to read your mail anyway. So, I mean, why not, right? Why not? Why not just be real? Right? Really, it's God's Saturday. I'm just real before you, man. I need you. I recognize that you're my everything and all of my things that are going on, my goods, my bads. You're there and on all of it. So God, I need you all week long. Took the Saturday to figure it out. But anyway, and then the 7th Psalm really says, who is God? Who is God to you? What a great way to go into your Sunday. Come to church and worship. Who are you worshiping? Well, I'm worshiping God. Okay, who's God to you? Are you worshiping the King of Kings? Are you worshiping the Prince of Peace? Are you worshiping your provider? Are you worshiping your Savior? Yes. Well, the answer is yes. But if you have an idea of who you're worshiping, of who God is, then you have a source for everything that comes throughout the week. You have a place to reconcile everything that's gone on throughout the week. And you're all ready to start it all over again on Monday. Happy is he who obeys God. See, we need to talk about how to walk this out. This is a pattern that I believe God gave us for our week. And like I said, I don't want to turn it into a whole new religion and take it a different way. But if you'll take the first 7 Psalms and kind of the little layout that we have here and look at that as a pattern for how to handle your week. And take each one of those days. And if you want to read the Psalms, there's none of them that are very long. I mean, what's the longest one of those first 7? Maybe 19 verses or something like that? They're better than they are long. Yes, that was good. You can literally read a psalm, one of the first 7 Psalms in a few minutes at most. But if you take your little handout, and what a week section there, And you take your Monday and you remember that happy is he who obeys God, and you trust God on Tuesdays and give it all to him. And you remember that he's your defender, particularly when you're weak on Wednesdays. And you trust him more and sleep sound on Thursdays. And you have godly expectation to start your day on Fridays. And you recognize him in all things, and trials included. And you keep it real with him on Saturday. And you come to church on Sunday with who is God in your mind? Who is God to me? You have a pattern for a successful week. You won't have a W-E-A-K, but you'll have a W-E-E-K, and it'll be with God. So that's a practical pattern. And then here's the next thing. No excuses. No excuses. Well, it was just difficult this Monday to actually do that because, I had a lot on my plate on Monday. Really? It took like 3 minutes. Lay your Bible on the counter while you brush your teeth. If you're not brushing your teeth for 3 minutes, you're doing it wrong. Okay? Quit making excuses. Get with God on Monday and be obedient. And then follow that all the way through the week. If you find yourself making an excuse, maybe you need to get down to Wednesday and say, God, I'm weak. I need help. Right? Be honest, humble, and hearing. You can talk about hearing from God, but you know what? If you're not honest, it doesn't work. If you can't be honest about what you're hearing, if you got a motive, it doesn't work. You got to be honest with yourself and with God. And then you honestly ask him to speak. Honestly ask him to speak to you. You know where God speaks the most? In his word. Funny that speak and word would go together, huh? Okay, anyway. So that's where God speaks. And if we're not humble, God resists the proud. Right? He resists the proud. So humble yourself before God. Recognize that I am nothing without him. God, without you, I have no hope. God, without you, I have no strength. God, without you, I have no wisdom. And then you can hear God. And you can say, well, I struggle. I don't know how I hear God. Well, let me tell you what. Start putting this pattern into place. Start reading his word. Start being honest before God about, the things that maybe you haven't been obeying him on. Be humble, not puffed up and proud. God, I'm really a good person. I don't, No, you're not. Okay? Be honest before God. Humble yourself. God, I am nothing without you. He does, yes. Speak to me. Let me hear your voice, God. And when I talk about God knows, I always think about one of the worst days as a child that I had. When my sisters were washing my dad's Scout in the front yard, which was dirt. And my cousin and I got the garden hose, and we were making like mud pies and, doing kid stuff. And so we decided to be really funny to throw mud at the Scout. And so we did. And they went in and told my dad, and he came out to where my cousin and I were and said, "Did you throw mud on the Scout?" And we're standing there with the garden hose and mud and all muddy. And I said, "No." And my cousin said, "Yes, we did, Uncle Bill." And he said, "Dwayne, go home." And then I got a spanking. And he told me, he said, "I'm not spanking you because you threw mud. I'm spanking you because you lied." And at first I thought, if my cousin wasn't such a rat, I'd have been okay. But then I realized it's kind of like God. He already knew the answer to the question when he asked. So sometimes we do that. We stand there before God and we say, "No, that's not how I am, God," and we're covered in mud. Yes. Be honest. That's right. Be honest, be humble. Listen to what he says. But start your week on Monday, this Monday. Don't wait for next Monday. Make time in this Monday and be happy because you're obeying God. Just purpose that and then follow the pattern this week. And I hope that at the end of that, we can say from this series that I'm going to sing because I've got a pattern for how to make my week strong.
No matter what.
Yeah, there you go. That's it for this week. Thanks.